Hi, and welcome everyone. This is Varleigh at Lavender Sky Panther with you on Sunday, February 1st, 2026. And this live is called Whale Wolf. And much like the past few lives I've done, we're going to go on a journey. I'm going to put together a story that I'll be weaving. I'll be pulling on different threads that are going to include all kinds of topics, ranging from ancient mythology to newer lore and even things in pop culture references, perhaps in movies or other things. So this will be another show that we're going to just kind of go on a wild ride. I think it's going to be pretty wild because when I was first putting it out there, what I always do is kind of do a little silent meditation on it and put it out there to my team, my divine team, to God and Source and loving energies, and say, what should I share today? Is pretty much how it goes, or for the next show. And all of a sudden, I started getting all of this information streaming through. So at first, it was just an idea of an overall topic. So, but it was taking me somewhere I didn't really want to go. So I'll just tell you the thought process and how we got here, how I got here with this is it started off with the word moo. Now, I don't know much about moo or Lemuria. And so I was like, really? That's a topic? Because I'm not really quite feeling it. Also, I really just wanted to get out of ocean energies. A lot of the shows that I've been doing have been about water and ocean, and I don't know why, because that's like my least favorite element. I like to look at it, but not so much be in it. I appreciate all of the life in it and all of that, and the water itself. But I'm more of a land lover. I've got too much earth in my star chart, my zodiac, and all of my signs in my astrology in my own personal chart are very earth based, and maybe some fire, but not water or not so much air. So anyway, the point is, I'm like, okay, water again. All right. Well, I need a little more to work with. And I don't know much about Lemuria or Mu. Now, for me, Mu, if it's the new concept to you, and I'm going to get into this deeper. For me, when you hear Mu, I think of a loving kind of spirit guide energy, a way shower energy, kind of a timeless, spirit energy. But some people might associate that with kind of like a priestess energy, or queen, or some type of figure, personification of a spirit or person. I think that's what the word mu is, not tied to a land per se. And I think Lemuria, even though that was coined by some white dudes in the 1800s, it's probably not the proper name for it. I still think that would then, be referring to the territory. Now, I have some visuals I'm going to pull up and show things to better explain what I'm talking about. But whatever the case, to finish off my little, circuit on what I was talking about, why this show even came up, I just heard Mu, Lemuria, and I'm like, okay, well, not really feeling it. And then I waited a bit, and then a whole bunch of information started pouring in about topics all over the place. So we're going to cover those. So there's going to be one thread kind of undercurrent of this whole thing, sticking with some of the ocean and water symbolism, is the undercurrent is also going to be talking about shape-shifting and transforming. It's going to be very interesting. So again, a lot of little pieces. This is how it works in my world, come together from all over. And I'm trying to take a whole lot of different variety and varied information and kind of synthesize it in and bridge it in a way and try to redistribute it in a way that makes sense. If it does, great. If not, this might also be for any of you a way just to hear some things. There might be just a word that kind of brings something else to your mind to further investigate, or something that is unbeknownst to me or you, maybe some kind of little code or piece that you've been looking for and you didn't know you needed it. So you never know what's going to come up in a show of mine like this. I don't even know, but I have already put it out there that whatever needs to be heard coming through me happens for you. And it doesn't matter whether you're catching this live or on the replay. It will be live for you whenever you watch it. And I want to step back a moment and just say welcome. And whether you're new or returning to this channel, and I appreciate you being here. And again, whenever you catch this, great. And whether it's now or 5 years from now, it will be appropriate for you. Now, also, as I put out there, I go on live, even though this channel has been shadow banned from the very beginning, from like 5.5 years ago. I know that. So I'm not sure if anyone will pop up and chat. Sometimes it will let me see some people, not others. So if I don't address you and you've come in, please do not take offense. It's literally like I don't get shown everything. Okay, but in the meantime, let me start the show in a way I didn't think I would. We are going to have a sea theme based on the title. You see whale and wolf in there. Actually, I like to mark the show with the cover, holding it up. I have old school slides. Even though this is PowerPoint, I prefer to do like tactile hands-on props and showing things the old way. Okay, I just prefer it. So that being said, we've got a big nautical theme coming up yet again. So I got my little fairy lights in a nautical jar here represented. And we're going to be talking, I'm going to just get this over with the props, whales, okay? Then we've got dolphins. I'm going to hold it up here because the background's white, okay? And there are all kinds of whales and dolphins out there. And I have a good question. I'm going to jump out of order on myself once again. I always try not to do this, but I'm going to ask a question as I get organized here. And I'll be asking another question soon. But here's a quote, and see how you feel about this. All dolphins are whales, but all whales are not dolphins. Okay, I don't know if you've ever been posed that question before, or maybe if you're in the marine world, you already know, like, that's easy. But I didn't really know about that. And so I'm putting that question out there for you. What do you think? And we're going to cover it in the show and get to some answers. But all dolphins are whales, but all whales are not dolphins. Does that feel true to you? I'm going to give you some more scientific explanation of all of that. But like everything I present, we have the book knowledge, but we're also coming into a new way where we're getting direct information from someplace, whether it's, divine loving source or our galactic family or ancestors. There's things that come through into our mind that pop up that we know we're connected into something. And it's giving us little like hint drops, little information of what's really going on in the world, because I think we can all agree, can basically throw out the history books because they're written from extreme bias and a lot of untruths. So now is the time to kind of just do a little gut check level, like, hey, that person said that. Does that seem true to me? Just because it was written in a book means nothing. Again, that can be altered, to suit whoever's, agenda, as there are many examples out there. I won't go into that now. But point is, now's the time to, everything you hear, everything you see, do a little check-in. Is that authentic? Especially now with AI, we've got to really check, hey, is that even a real thing, or something mimicking something else, like mimicking a person? Is that even their voice, or is that some, AI voice, that type of a thing? And that will come into play too. I've talked about this before. It's so important. We're getting all this stuff, I think, thrown at us so that we do hone our skills at tuning in and saying, okay, is that legitimate? Does that feel true to me? Or is there something false about that? And it's going to become really important in so many levels. And I like to say, look, the first 200 or so shows that I've done on my channel were all about sky watching and pointing out cloaking craft, cloaking ET craft, cloaking other kinds of craft, but mostly ET. A lot of them, most of which are galactic family up there, nothing harmful, nothing evil. And I'll always talk about that. Like if you see something up in the sky, because this may apply to you. If it's not now, it might start to. And it's not a bad thing if it does. I was given eyes to see this stuff back in 2018. I was all of a sudden activated from one night to the next. All of a sudden I started seeing this stuff in the sky. I'm like, what am I looking at? And then like in a gradual way over the 5.5 years, I've been shown a little more, a little more, a little more. It's nothing to fear. And out of all those years of documenting craft, there are only maybe 2 where I'm like, I don't like the vibe off of that thing. And then I would like go inside. But all the rest, it either had a loving presence or a showing off presence, like, what the craft was doing was pretty interesting in the sky and just kind of made me wonder, like with childlike wonder, nothing bad. So the reason why I'm saying that is that's like the ultimate reason why it's good to be practicing with the AI. Like, is that real? Does that feel right? Does that rub me wrong? You're going to know it with your most instinct, basic, internal instinct. You're going to just know, like a dog knows, whether some person coming in, walking up to them, they can sense it like 25 feet or more away. Like that's a friendly person, or something's not up with them, right? So in the same way, we're being called to go back to our remembrance of who we really are and a lot of our gifts. And if we don't feel like we're connecting in with them, sometimes they get activated, whether you want them to or not. And that's a good thing. All right. So I took a little side trip there, but it's okay. I want to get to now a couple of phrases that kept coming in my mind right before I got on here. Actually, I was preparing to come to this, laptop here and do the show. And this phrase just kept popping up, wouldn't leave me alone. So this might be a message for somebody out there. And again, if not, just like let it go in one ear, out the other. But I kept hearing, that was then, this is now. And then I kept hearing, if not now, when? And it's a beautiful thing. That was then, this is now. If not now, when? So it was starting to come to me why this came through. We have been going through this planet. If you're here with me now, it's February 1st, 2026, by whatever calendar we're given, that we all, like as a collective, like kind of agree upon for now, just to have a basic reference that we can all share. So February 1st, 2026. So all this knowledge, if however you are vintage age on this planet, you've been learning a whole lot of stuff or absorbing a whole lot of stuff all this time. A lot of us might be a little jaded now because things maybe haven't like come out on our visual world the way we thought. Maybe we've hoped and prayed for things to come to fruition and they really haven't. I had a dream of mine that I was like, oh, I'd really like to travel to this one place. I held that vision and it took 14 years for it to come to fruition. And it did actually a year ago, a little over a year ago. And I'm like, wow, I had such a clear vision. And I'm like, I'm all in. I'm going to go to this place within 5 years. And then it, kept going and elongating. And then it took 14 freaking years to get to this place. I had my heart set on going. But then everything lined up beautifully for me to go then. And my point is that was then, this is now. So at the origin point of when I was really hoping to go to this place, the energies were not, how do I say, really working in our favor. There have been a lot of heavy and dense energies trying to block our beautiful sparks of life from really creating and seeing the world we want to see, like in real time. And so we've kind of had resistance energies all that time. And now those are lifting. So I just want to say that it's easy to judge like, oh, well, that's how it was always done, so we do it. No, we're going to throw out all of the past, not all of the past, but I think you know what I mean. Just throw away the notion of, oh, I got blocked last time, or, oh, that'll never work, because those were old energies that we were operating under. Those now are lifting. They talk about the veil is thinning or lifting. That's what we're talking about. There was some kind of a barrier, whether somewhat permeable or not at all, between blocking us from living in like a 3D world, from accessing the magic and miraculous of the 5D. Well, that's starting to disintegrate. It has been. And so now it's almost like, I'm not saying just wish and it's like the I Dream of Jeannie show where you blink and there it is. But that's the goal. That's where we're getting to. So I just want to say, I didn't plan on talking about this, but because it came through, that was then, this is now. We are under so many different energies that are really working in our favor. So what I like to say, this is my little kernel of wisdom that is also going to come out now, because over 15 years of going on a spiritual path, I had my Great Awakening 2010, where it was just clear I'm going on a spiritual path, whether I knew it or not. That's what happened. So what I have learned in those 15 years is this little nugget of information, a little wisdom word to the wise. And a lot of you probably already know it, but I'm going to say it anyway. The moment anything adverse seems to be happening in the outside world, because again, energies are now working much more in our favor, just say it in your mind or out loud. No, like at first you might be, oh my God, that's happening. No, just say it's happening for me, not to me, and all is well. And it works out every time. And if you can just say it in your mind quietly or out loud, as soon as like something like bad seems to be happening, your entire, what you see on your outer world will flip around in your favor right away. And I've been practicing this for years and years, and it works every time, whether it's something small or big. And you're just affirming, and you know it, and you're stating it. And, if you just practice that, the more you practice it, the more it's like second nature. And the more you flip your day from going like downhill to uphill immediately. Okay. Now, I guess that's enough about that. There was one more thing that was coming through, and I'm like, okay, this has nothing to do with the entire thing I planned here today, because I have oracle cards for the end if I don't run too far over on this. I have book references and stories and lore and myths, and we're going to get into some fun stuff. But I do want to throw this one other topic out, because it was not leaving me alone before I jumped on here. And that is the concept of, kind of goes with all I just was talking about, but just imagine, it does go in with the if not now, when, if you don't do something now, when are you going to do it? Because it's like the idea of, imagine God, loving source, whatever you consider to be just pure love that created all of the life. Okay. What if you symbolize that as like a loving parent? And then God just says, oh, I'm going to drop off a bunch of versions of me on earth because I want to play down there as my playground. And it's much like God playing a video game and choosing avatars. So, oh, I don't want to just be this dragon avatar. I want to be a person. I want to be an elephant. I want to be whatever, and just drop down into this game board of earth. And I want to see the world through all these different avatars' eyes. So I want to see it through the elephant. I want to see it through this, through that. All these little, my avatar. These are all me. So I just want to use that as an analogy that that's us. We have the spark of life, and that's just God dropping in and saying, oh, I want to see life through the eyes of this character called Varleigh, and I want to see it through this and this and this. And then we start to look at that, all of us being avatars, which, by the way, I looked up avatar, the name, the etymology, because if you've watched my channel, you know I like looking at etymologies and root words, origins of different words. So it's apparently avatar comes from Sanskrit avatara, meaning descent, referring to a deity's incarnation on earth, originating from roots meaning down, ava, and to cross over, tarati. So that makes sense. But anyway, I'm just bringing that up because say God's playing a game, chooses all these avatars, which turns out to be us playing this game on the game board of life here on earth, seeing things through all of our eyes. It just kind of makes sense that then we would start to look at each other as these little avatars and say your neighbor or whoever, friend, and just say, oh, you're the me that would be flying this jet fighter. Oh, I'm the you that would be, doing this office work. Or, we start to see each other because at the end of the day, after we take it all up back, God says, okay, I played all my little pieces. Let's bring them all back now. It's kind of all the one. Like I've referred to this before, the Neil Donald Walsh book, Conversations with God, and other literature that he's written. He just says, oh, it's just there's one of us in the room, and that's why we can feel so connected and, pulled together into community, coming together in unity. And it seems to make sense instead of just saying, okay, everybody off, like never see anyone ever again. Eventually we'll all kind of come back to the one, and it's a beautiful thing. Okay, I think that's enough of that. I was going to say something else, but that's good enough. And I think the, if not now, when part that I started off with too is still the kind of similar example. God drops us all off on earth, and it's like, okay, say God's got the big bus and it's going to pick us all up. And we look at our list and be like, oh, did I learn how to bake a cake? Oh, did I learn how to drive a car? Oh, did I learn how to swim? Did I learn how to pilot a boat? I mean, we have got all this list. And it's kind of like, I don't want to say time's up in definitely not a doomsday scenario or anything, but it's like, okay, guys, we're going to like shift and we're going to drive this bus instead of Earth. We're going to go check out this other galaxy. So did you get all done what you wanted to do there? And I kind of feel like we're in that point now, like no rush, no pressure. But if there's anything you wanted to experience, because I really think we're just here to collect all of these experiences. And then later we just say, it's like telling a friend who just went off to a vacation, say you're based in, I don't know where this is coming from, but Kentucky, and your friend just went to Thailand, and your friend comes back and you'd be like, oh, how was it over there? And they would explain. I think we're kind of in the same thing, like wherever we go next, and it'll be a good place, as we kind of going through a shift from 3D to 5D and wherever else we get to choose where we want to go. We're still very much alive when we leave here. And we just say to whoever we meet next, oh, they'll say, how was it on Earth? Like, what was really cool? And then you can say, oh, I just loved pizza, or chocolate milk was the bomb, and you tell them like where you went or what you wanted to do, or say you didn't go travel anywhere and you're just a homebody and love it. You just say, it was so cool to sit in this one place and observe the seasons and everything going around me without traveling around all over. So anyway, I kind of, I just get that kind of vibe. I wanted to come up through the show. So now I'll get back on topic more to whale and wolf with the undercurrent of shape-shifting and transforming. So when I was getting the show together, this oracle card popped out at me because I pulled a lot of different decks from animal spirit decks and stuff to talk about, because we've got the whale and the wolf. It's a little obvious. And this card also wanted to come out because I talk about weaving a story, and I'm going to weave this very particular story now. And so I wanted to pull up on purpose the spider spirit card, which says make your dreams real. And it's a number 56 or an 11. And if you don't like spiders, sorry, but it's a really beautiful depiction of one. So no fear there. for anybody with arachnophobia. But make your dreams come true. And from this, I get a very beautiful, like almost maternal creation energy. It even looks like there's little orbs, that I can't do this right. Sorry. The purple and like another kind of orb. It's very magical. And just the way it's suspended there, it's almost like it's just very balletic almost, just very poetic. And but anyway, we're going to weave things together, and it's very appropriate. It does tie into what I just brought up at the beginning of the show. Make your dreams real, and keep in mind that was then with the energies that might have been stopping you. This is now. There's nothing in your way. Just that's kind of energy I wanted to capture with all of this. So bringing up Spider Spirit of that card, that brings me back to a thread I'm going to pull for the story weaving here. And if you looked at some of my previous shows, again, I don't know why, but it wouldn't let me alone that the Greek gods kept popping in, and I had to like touch on different stories involving them. So I think this is going to be the last time I do that, I hope. I mean, it's interesting to know what they're about and what they did and strategies and everything involved with that whole world. But this one, I just want to bring up a very specific god because I did bring up that card, Spider Spirit. And we all know, it's an arachnid, and Arachne is the girl, apparently, that Athena transformed into a spider. So I don't know if you know that mythological story. I'm going to use quotes when things could be true or a lot of truth in it. Again, like I said at the beginning, use your own truth detector. That's you. Does that sound like it was true? Some truth there? Or nah, whatever. Well, anything you say is right because it's your own story that you're creating and you say so. So in my story, I do believe there's some truth to it. I do believe that the Greek gods are really ETs of various types coming in from different places. Like the ones in the Greek world came from one area galactically. The Romans are another one, and there's a lot of them that do infighting and turf wars, etc. I covered that in some of my previous shows, live shows. So what I want to just say is, again, we're having a transformation theme here, or shape-shifting theme. It is said that Athena was a shapeshifter and could shift into an owl and fly over her armies. She was known for war and strategy, good battle strategy and whatnot. And so I thought I had heard of stories of her transforming Arachne. So Arachne, she apparently turned this girl into a spider because she was really gifted at weaving and insulted the gods, right? It's always these petty insults for these gods. That's why I say there's some kind of ET race, very vain type of beings, whatever. But anyway, so poor Arachne gets transformed into a spider just because she was damn good at weaving and showed up the gods. So anyway, she gets transformed into a spider. And what's the other famous transformation done? Attributed to Athena. And again, was it Athena? I don't know. You use your own truth detector, but by the written book, it says her most famous one was probably, you might know, Medusa, right? So a young girl gets, let's just say, how do I say it nicely? One of the other gods goes to try to have relations with her. She says no, but he does it anyway. So supposedly Athena gets mad. The temple is desecrated, dedicated to Athena, etc., etc. Probably she was just jealous. And also, so she turned Medusa into a gorgon, which is, nice face, but then all the snakes in the hair and pretty grotesque. So I've just heard of those two notable stories. But no, apparently Athena was very busy at transforming people and shape-shifted them, per se. So there was Paradix turned into a partridge, supposedly saved not to be thrown off the Acropolis by Daedalus. Then she supposedly turned Coronis to a crow to escape unwanted pursuit by Poseidon, sea god. Then there was Merimix, who she turned into an ant because that person apparently claimed the plow as, I think it was his own invention, and Athena was mad because it was hers, supposedly. Then there was, I think you pronounce it Uriel and Stetheno, and they were turned into gorgons just like their sister Medusa. And then supposedly Athena turned Odysseus into an old beggar as just to get him home safely, I guess, to Ithaca. Then she turned, I may pronounce this wrong, Myrsini into a myrtle plant. I'm not sure why. And then there's Circe, who transformed men into pigs in the Odyssey, and also transformed a sea nymph Scylla into a monster with dogs springing from her waist. And that's according to Ovid, Metamorphosis. Now, there's a work by Ovid, Metamorphosis. I'm just going to say add a C in front of Ovid and look at the word metamorphosis. You got meta in there. And there's just also a crossover connection between the injections, the vaxes. Suppose they have properties in there that alter DNA. And I really think the overall name for that whole thing that happened over the past 5 years is very strongly connected with Ovid. And then we have Facebook, which kind of what turned into Meta. So then you got Ovid and Metamorphosis. I think there's a lot there. I'm not going to do a deeper dive on that. I'm not led to, but throwing it out there because those might be pieces of your tapestry or threads that you want to look into and pull further and see where you get to. It's also, instead of pulling a thread, you can look at it as going down a rabbit hole. As I said in a previous show, I'm so done with it. That whole phrase is overused. So I'm going to call them badger holes from now on. Okay, that was a lot, but that just sets us up for our shape shifting theme, which now we're going to start and get into applying it to our whales and our wolves based on my title of the show. And before we get into that, a little more, with the whales and wolves, I just want to start off with, because this is kind of outside of anything that I'm setting up for coming up now. It doesn't flow as well if I try to throw it in anywhere else. I want to bring up the idea of whale bones and cathedrals in Europe. So I don't know if any of you are based in Europe or have traveled in Europe or in other places where they might have these really medieval type, Gothic type cathedrals. I was in one in Germany a few decades ago, and there was this huge, here, I'll actually hold it up. There was a huge spine. Okay, sorry, I got three images here. Let me explain. There's a whalebone hanging at the entrance of a church, supposedly a whalebone, and that's what's it called? I'm going to pronounce it wrong. Wawel. Then there's another whalebone supposedly in a church in Cologne, Germany, and then this spine. This is a little picture. I'll put it up there. That's like a backbone, if you can see that, is a backbone supposedly of a whale in another church, and I think somewhere in England, in Durham, something like that. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is I saw one. I couldn't find the church online, and I can't remember the name of it, but I did see something like this hanging off of a huge chain by the entrance to this really ancient cathedral. And I remember I asked the people who worked there, I said, hey, what the heck is this huge backbone? It's enormous, and why is it there? I had no idea it might be a whale. And they said, oh, it's a whale backbone. And I'm like, why do you have a whale backbone hanging at the entrance to your church? And they said, well, there's, some different stories, but the main thing that people say is it's just as like a talisman to ward against any flooding in the church. And I thought that was very odd and didn't make sense. Now, as I looked further into it, and this is a little piece or thread that you might want to pull and jump down and look at further, is that just through the texts I was reading, some lore suggests, no, those aren't whale bones or, from a whale. Some of those might be from a dragon. Some of those might be from other quote unquote mythological creatures that don't exist right anymore. So that's just something fascinating to maybe take a look at. And as I've said on a previous show, I believe that a lot of these dragons and things did exist, and we just moved into a frequency of this evolution of our consciousness, or not even evolution, where we're at, that we've been told not to believe it and whatever. So we've suppressed all of the possibility of it existing, and therefore we don't see into that frequency. But now that we are moving from a 3D, consciousness up toward 5D and beyond and higher, that means that when the veil is thinning, as I was talking about earlier, that means that we're going to start to see deeper. So it's not that suddenly these mythological creatures we might see again. We might start seeing dragons or unicorns or whatever. Doesn't mean they're suddenly just popping up. They've probably always been there, but now we have the eyes to see. It's like now we have the glasses, to see that, and that we didn't before. And actually, or the other way around, maybe we had glasses over our eyes that we couldn't see it. Now we're taking them off and seeing everything for what it really is. That's better. So anyway, but I'm going to leave that topic to the side because that could be a whole nother subject to talk about. So what I'm going to talk about is get back to why the show is called Whale Wolf and the shape-shifting kind of aspect of it. And I'm going to put it out there one more time before I go through some etymology on some words for this theme. I'm going to say it again. Do you agree with all dolphins are whales, but all whales are not dolphins? So again, what do you think on that? And we'll get into that. I'll explain more. So whale, I'm going to do some etymology notes I have here. I'm just going to go over some things, and I'll just show for now. We got an orca, we've got like a bottlenose dolphin, typical wolf. We have a pilot whale. This thing we're going to get into. This is a shape-shifting thing of Inuit culture in the Arctic, and that's called the aklut, I think if I say it right. And it's a orca that could shapeshift into a wolf. So it could be wolf on land to hunt and jump in the water and be an orca. And this is just a representation of an orca agate, a crystal, and some other like mountain jade, forming a whale. And I think that's in the Maori culture in New Zealand that was done. So let me just read through some of the etymology, and then actually I'm going to hold up some crystals, some orca agate, and we'll keep going. So whale, according to the Maori, or Maori, I think they say it, Maori, in New Zealand, whale is Tohora, and they're part of the Te Wenau, I hope I'm saying it right, which, Te Wenau Pua, which means the family of animals that expel air, or it can also mean their extended family. And in Old English, it's spelled Hwael, so I'm guessing it's like Havel, any large sea creature, including whales and walruses. So that's just a couple sources for just generic term whale. When we get to wolf, in Greek, it's Lycos, in Latin, it's lupus. In Slavic languages, it looks like Volk. In Old English, it's wolf, or more Germanic kind of way of saying it, wolf. All right. Then we get to orca itself, because we are going to cover orcas coming up. In the Maori, it's kekahi or maki, and they were considered, the orcas were considered treasures and themselves and guardians of the sea, symbolizing the balance between land and sea, strength and intelligence. Then we get to this creature I'm going to talk about, or this being, the aklut that turns from wolf to whale and vice versa. That one in the Inuit Arctic lore is a shape-shifting spirit that takes the form of a wolf on land and an orca or killer whale in the sea. It's often described as a sea wolf, and it is recognized by wolf tracks that lead into the ocean, reflecting its ravenous, dangerous nature. So according to that lore, just what I could find, supposedly that shape-shifting creature was known to be kind of vicious on land, maybe taking people in the night and whatnot. Like when it was hunting for food. That's just from what I could read. Maybe anybody out there, if you know more about the Inuit culture, you might say, no, they were revered. It's just what I could find. So again, use your own truth detector, your internal guidance. What do you feel about that? Then we are going to talk about dolphins as well coming up. So we have the Greek, it comes from Greek, meaning Greek word delphis, and that means womb, but like fish with a womb, which is mammals, right? It's an interesting connection. And then we're going to also talk about the area of the world called Micronesia. And that comes from Greek mikros, meaning small, and nesia from Greek nesos, meaning island. So that's just some tidbits, if it interests you. If not, oh well, just skip ahead on that whole thing. All right, so now I'm going to answer according to what I can find per the book of all dolphins are whales, but all whales are not dolphins. So here's what they say. It says, all dolphins are technically whales, but not all whales are dolphins. Dolphins are a specialized subgroup within the order Cetaceae, I think that's how you say it, or Cetacea, which includes all whales, dolphins, and porpoises, specifically falling under the toothed whale category, Odontoceti. While all dolphins are toothed whales, other whales like blue whales are baleen, and sperm whales are a different type of toothed whale. So baleen whale, if you know it, it's like looks like one big push broom brush. So like across the mouth is like a filter, and it just filters in like the plankton and stuff. So it's not teeth. Okay. So anyway, that's just another little tidbit about what they're classifying dolphins and whales as. And that's going to be important later, because I have a story involving a pilot whale, which is this one right here, which is technically a dolphin and not a whale, even though it's called pilot whale. So again, that's just orca, like a bottlenose dolphin, pilot whale, and these are different variations of dolphins, because there's a ton of different variations out there. Some are smaller, bigger, pinker, different shaped snout, etc. Okay, so now we're going to just touch on, like I said, this show is going to include a lot of different pieces, a lot of different threads that will kind of come together in the end and still tie in with that underlying theme of shapeshifting. So now we're going to look at the area of the world called Lemuria. So I started off the show saying, I don't know why Mu and Lemuria just kept coming up to talk about, even though I wasn't feeling like I really knew as much or should, but here we go. So Lemuria is supposedly, it's like the predecessor to Atlantis, and they kind of coexisted at the same time. But whereas Atlantis is in the Atlantic Ocean, Lemuria, or they're calling Mu, and again, I think that was actually an actual person energy, happened off in the Pacific. So here's what I mean. All right, so let me start off with here. So, okay, so if you look at this image first. So here's Mu, right? And that's happening in the Pacific. So you've got Australia here, up in here is Thailand and stuff. And then the Micronesia we're going to be talking about is somewhere in here. So it's part of it. And down here is, is it called Rapa Nui, if I say that right? And Easter Island is over here, okay? So you got South America, North America. So just to kind of place it, New Zealand is down here. So it's this some kind of landmass happening up over in there. And here's another depiction of it, okay? It's slightly different looking, but it's a big land territory happening over here. Now, why that's interesting is I feel very strongly connected that, yes, it did exist. Yes, it probably involved some very highly evolved beings. Maybe they didn't even have a body. They were more non-corporeal, as they say, where they were just energies. And, we might even say galactic energies coming down and set up, this kind of a society, and it evolved a little bit. That's just my impression. But anyway, what's interesting is when you look at Micronesia, and let me see if you can see it here. I had a better graphic, but anyway, I'll probably post it in my post section later, or put a link to it in the description area below. But again, here we have Australia sitting here, New Zealand over here. So there's a lot of islands all in here. And this says Austronesian is like the language that's probably supposedly a common thread through this whole thing of all these islands, is language based on something grouped as Austronesian. And that apparently stretches over, shows over 12,500 miles of that group of peoples that are connected through that language. And this is actually Madagascar, by the way over here. But you can see that whole territory is where Lemuria would have been, and that whole language is unified in that field. So that's very telling that something went on here, that did connect them all. So I very much believe there's a bigger landmass, and now all we have are all these, multiple islands everywhere. Also in here somewhere, I thought I brought a blow up of this, but I don't think I did, an enlargement. Also in the mix, and some of these regions around Micronesia, is Guam, and there's a crescent shape of islands actually going the other way like that, and that's the Mariana Trench. And there's a military base on Guam, and I'm going to get to a little island in here in the mix called Chuuk, and I'll explain why, because there's some interesting lore there about shape-shifting that I want to get to. But my point of showing this is see what you think about the whole Lemuria, Mu, maybe dive in more and see what you think. Supposedly the Austronesian language is spoken by, or at least known by, over 400 million people? Something amazing, the number of the amount. Now, the name Austronesian was supplied by some, I'll just say, white dude in like the 1800s, meaning Auster, meaning outer, and also somehow it meant South Islands. So that's where it supposedly came from. So anyway, I did post some, in my post section, I put a couple YouTube videos done by somebody who did a nice job of explaining that whole region, okay? And I am going to, let me hop around in my slides. There are a few, there's like 4 key parts that they call the Federated States of Micronesia, and that's a place called Chuuk, Pohnpei, Kosrae, and Yap, okay? And I'm going to pull up their flags. All right, now there's a common thread, and sorry, my printer was running out of ink on this one. But Chuuk, like I said, we're going to talk about a little interesting mythology in quotes, or legend or lore, that talks about shapeshifting associated with Chuuk and some dolphins and people shapeshifting. So we've got Chuuk, and then we've got, look at all these flags. Pohnpei has an incredible ancient ruins. I don't know how ancient. We can get into how many thousands of years, but place called Non Modal, and I have a picture coming up of that. And I'm just throwing these words out because even if I don't cover them in depth now, it's again maybe something you want to look into further, especially if you've never heard of it before. What I find interesting is the name of that island area is Pohnpei or Pohnpei. It looks a lot like Pompeii. And, for me, names and etymologies have a lot of meaning, and I feel there might be some connection there, especially when I start to see stars in every single flag, right? We got four stars here, ton of stars outlining here, stars here over this coconut half, and over here at the center is a star. Stars everywhere. And then further over, we have the Marshall Islands. Look at that huge star. And if you watched my previous show where I got into the Titanic and the flags of the White Star Line and all of that and what that ties into with ISIS, there's a lot to this, that I recommend you go check that out the other show. And this is just the generic, the four federated states. So what do they show? They show four stars. So once again, we're given the information right in front of our eyes. These stars, like in the stars and stripes of the United States flag, it's a blue background with stars on it. We're talking galactic representation. It's encoded into everything that some of our origins are tied in with these galactic origins. Anyway, that's just another aside. So I'm going to hold this slide up to cover. So here we go. We're at Micronesia, Pacific Ocean. I'm going to be talking about Chuuk here. The thing I'm going to read, it's going to be a story called The Island of the Dolphin Girls. I'm just going to read it. It's just a few pages. I'm going to source the book in the description area below. This channel, I get no profit for it. This is just all spiritual fair use, spiritual educational discussion here. And for, just for fun. So we're going to talk about Chuuk, and then we're going to get into where this non-modal is. There's, I have another map I'll show in a minute. There's a ring of a reef, around some of these things, and lots of atolls. And there's just so much here to dive into. So this is like the original state of it now. And then this is kind of a rendition of what it might have looked like with all of these walls and things. So that's just a subject I'm throwing out for you to look into further. And then just as an aside, there's another archaeological site that they're finding underwater, the Yonaguni. And it just has a very reminiscent feeling, over toward Japan. Okay. Now I'm going to show you the covers of these two books. So, when I was kind of divinely given the theme of, you're going to include something about Mu and Lemuria, I'm like, okay. I remembered I had a couple of books that I started to look into, but it wasn't really clicking with the subject yet, but now it wants to come up. So I'm just going to show one more little, these paper slides, and then I'm going to get into reading some of the lore. So this would get into Chuuk. Here's just a little image, from above, and it talks about there being lagoons of Chuuk. So you've got some outer, like reef-like islands, kind of protecting other things within. Here's a better map. Sorry. Probably should have started with this, but if you can see those two, images below, we've got the lagoon and this whole outer line. This outer line is showing that's like a barrier reef around it with protected islands. Now, the interesting thing about Chuuk, and this is just more of a question I'm going to drop out because I talked about some war and battle strategy in some previous shows that came up in different ways. One more modern, one more ancient, or not ancient, but back in 1912. But here I want to talk about Chuuk because apparently that was like a Japanese stronghold, if you will, like for all, like a lot of ships and things. And apparently in World War II, that got bombed the heck out of because supposedly Japan had that as a military base. And the American or Allied, whatever, came over and bombed the heck out of it. So if you don't know, look up Chuuk. There's a lot of shipwrecks and tons of ships around this whole area that people go diving at. And apparently they're not, so deep. So it's supposedly like a scuba diving haven to go look at all this stuff. But then you've got to ask, why the heck is there such a military stronghold in the middle of quote unquote nowhere? And why is Guam not far away military base, with access to the Mariana Trench? Just a lot of food for thought, a lot of questions I'm going to throw out, and to see if any of you want to go look into that further on your own. So now, after talking about all of that, let me I pulled up my only two books that kind of touch on the Pacific Islands or the lost civilization of Lemuria. It's this book. I haven't read the whole thing, so I don't know that I recommend it or not. That's just something if you feel led. It's by Frank Joseph. I am just going to pull up one picture from the very front of the book. Hopefully you can see it. Here we go. Sorry, everything's backwards for me, so it's kind of hard, especially holding this book. Hold on. Why can I? Oh, here you go. So here, I don't know if you can see it. There's like a temple out there in the middle of the ocean, and there's somebody like on a rock pointing over to it, surviving. And it just says, give me 1 second. I got to light this thing up literally with a light to read it. It's dark. It doesn't look like it, but it's kind of dark where I am to try to read this thing. Okay. So that the picture says it's a scene from Ramayana, the Hindu epic depicting the flight of survivors from their Pacific motherland. The mural is located at the Wat Phra Keo Temple complex in Bangkok, Thailand. So here, maybe I can, it has a person kind of riding a sea monster, maybe even getting attacked by it. Oh, and what I thought was a temple is actually just somebody with a headpiece resembling, I don't know if this is going to work. I'm sorry, guys. No. Okay, you can kind of see it. Hopefully better. Anyway, again, this is stuff to look into more on your own as well. But I just wanted to bring up that image. So there is reference in Thailand to some kind of, disaster and people surviving on the sea. And I pulled actually an oracle card for anyone interested in that aspect of things spiritually. And there's a message coming through that says the very thing that challenges you can be transformed into your greatest strength. So again, we're talking about transformation and kind of that sea imagery and riding through. So that might be a little extra message of the day for anybody out there. All right, now we're going to get into something very interesting. I found this book in a very unusual way. And this one is called Pacific Island Legends, Tales from Micronesia, Melanesia, Polynesia, and Australia. And here we go. That's what it looks like. And again, I'll put the reference to all of these in the description area below sometime after the show airs. And what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to paraphrase, I think, what's going on in this story. Yeah. Okay. I think I'm just going to paraphrase it instead of read it. But this is one of the lore of the island of Chuuk. It's the island of the dolphin girls. And just to sum it up very quickly, there's like a prince, a good-looking boy on a boat, and he's going out with the men, and it's kind of like the coming-of-age story where he's learning how to sail like the rest of them. And then all of a sudden, he's lazily drifting off, and there's like a mermaid in the water. Actually, sorry, not a mermaid, a dolphin. And the dolphin, he looks over and sees the dolphin, and all of a sudden the dolphin sees him and then flips the tail and knocks him into the water. And he's going down for whatever reason. He can't swim, and he's looking, and he just gets the intuition to swim downward. Like he couldn't go upward for some reason, and he had very strong guidance that said keep swimming downward, which of course is counterintuitive, but something told him to swim downward. So he does. Then he pops up and finds himself at a freshwater lagoon. Think about it. He swam downward. He's in the ocean. How did, we're talking Chuuk, that island I showed you. How did he end up at a lagoon of fresh water, right, after swimming downward? So that brings up the whole, what's really down in the depths of the ocean? If we go deep enough, does something flip and change? Or did he find like an entrance to like a hollow earth, or what's going on? That's an aside. Those are questions I have. Anyway, he gets to this lagoon, and then he sees these dolphins and coming, to the lagoon where he swam. So apparently there's like a ring of land at this lagoon. So he steps and hides behind a bush because he doesn't know what's going on with these dolphins, especially since the one with purpose knocked him down. So anyway, he sees the dolphins come up, and then all of a sudden they take off what is called their skins. So apparently the dolphin skins come off, and they're thrown into a pile on the ground, and they're these beautiful girls. So here we get into the shape-shifting story or camouflage story, where they took off what's just like an outer skin or suit, just like a hoodie. They took it off and put it on the shore, and then they're just walking around like humans. So anyway, there's a lot more to the story, but anyway, they discover he's there hiding. The one girl really liked him. He stays a while, but then he says, hey, my parents are really going to miss me. They'll think I'm dead. So all the dolphin girls get together. They load him up in a cage just because it's easy to transport him. Throw lots of fresh fruits from the island in there. And then on their backs, they bring this cage up, to the lagoon, and he reunites with his kin. So I just thought it was a very oddly specific, coming from this story of the Island of the Dolphin Girls and Chook. So when you look at, again, my battle strategy mind, my 3D mind, and kind of seeing what warring, turf types of entities are doing, like I've talked about in my previous shows, different groups of infighting and warring groups, I can't help but think of there's something very special about this area, because like that island with stories of like shape-shifting and going down and discovering those kinds of things. There must be something very, very special and magical about this area of islands. And then I'm going to say an overwhelming yes, that was the area of Lemuria, whatever we want to call it. Some people pronounce it different. To others, it feels like a different name altogether. It's whatever is true for you. I think, I have been down south of that region and actually into New Zealand. That was the place I wanted to go for over 14 years and finally got to go. There is something very different about that area. And even though New Zealand is technically just outside of what they were calling the Lemuria, I think it's all part of it too, because time worked funny. I don't know, time just seemed to suspend. And there's just a very, very specific feeling off the land that felt so ancient and without time. And so I can see why there's a lot more to that area of the world. And I can see why some military installations are out there, because I'm very sure they have discovered different kinds of beings, and they're into something, whether it's under the water or, in that land area. It's a large land area. Like I showed you, it's like over 12,000 miles of something very specific and special happening out there. So anyway, that might be something that you want to look into further. Again, I hadn't really heard of Micronesia until something, came across for me to find it in here. And again, that area includes Micronesia, Melanesia, Polynesia, and Australia. Okay, well, enough about that. Now, flipping over, just like jumping into the other ocean, into the Atlantic, I didn't want to focus on this much, but just other than, I don't know if you've heard of what is it called? The 1513, and in the year 1513, the Piri Rice map, supposedly very well documented the coastlines of, including Atlantis, Africa, America, and Spain. And apparently part of the map shows what they're calling the Bimini Road. So Bimini is out there, south of, where is it actually? Is it east of Key West? Anyway, it's down there at the southern tip of Florida out in the ocean. And these are a couple scuba divers, going over what looks like a very structured, what they're calling the road, a road of Bimini, which they're saying is a part of Atlantis. Okay. So that's just an aside, because we've got Lemuria on the one coast, we've got Atlantis on the other, or on the, the west of the west coast of the United States, and on the east coast of the United States, we have Atlantis. And then I don't think this shows up too well, but this is Bimini from the air, and it's kind of looks like an arrowhead. It's got a triangular shape. It's a little symmetrical too. So my sky watching days, when I think of all the things that I've documented cloaking craft in the skies on my show, I have a lot of shapes look like this that are like the overall craft shape. It's very interesting. Anyway, that's just an aside. Okay, so I did talk already about the Aklut. I think that's how you say it, Aklut, the Inuit version of this shape-shifting creature. This is just a little more information. So we've got the orca and the wolf make this thing. There's different depictions of it. Some say no, it's not a hybrid where it's wolf and orca. It's just one or the other that totally shapeshifts. I kind of agree with that, if this exists, like that. And then this is just a depiction of, there's a group of orca, and I forget if it's down by Argentina, I think that's where it is, where they have learned to beach themselves to catch their prey, in this case a seal, and then they wriggle themselves back out with the tide, and then they get back out to sea. So they actually get onto the land. So it just kind of reminded me of this whole thing where they talk about the whale coming on land, becoming the wolf. It's just kind of a little bridge, in reality of what might be happening. And not that this isn't reality. I think there's something to this. I think it's very possible that something does shapeshift like that. See what you think, as I always say. All right. Now we're going to get into Orcas Island. Let me see. Yeah, here we go. There's, if you're not familiar with it, I was not. It's off the west coast of the United States, I guess off the west coast of the Pacific Northwest, and it's in the Salish Sea. And there's a bunch of islands. So hang on. Yeah, so here's Orcas Island here. There's a bunch of other islands surrounding it, see? And here's the main shape of it, like this. And this is just a view of it. So it's kind of, a little remote to get to. It's in the, as you see, in the San Juan Islands in Washington State, northern part of Puget Sound. Okay. Now, the reason why I'm bringing that up is in a very weird, mysterious, and mystical way. This island came to my attention. Had never heard of it before otherwise. This is not going to be all bitmappy, but again, it's just kind of showing you the shape that might do something for somebody out there. Give them a little bit of code. We might see something in there. It's interesting how these inlets are parallel to each other. That's just what I'm finding interesting. Anyway, there is some lore, myths, and legends, all in air quotes, about that. So for Orcas Island, supposedly, it involves, there's tales of Bigfoot or Sasquatch, the Sasquatchy people, as I like to call them, sunken pirate treasure on Turtleback Mountain there. And there's talk of like secret underground portals and things, energy vortices on Mount Constitution there. So I'm just throwing this out. It might be something you want to look at further. The indigenous there have been there for a long, long time, supposedly. I don't know if it was thousands of years. The Salish coast peoples. So the Salish indigenous were called Lumi, Lummi, or Samish, Samish. And I thought Lumi was interesting because we've got that Lemuria, connection. They had supposedly lived there for thousands of years. And somebody was saying, there's an Atlantis-like energy vortex in the east sound of the island. And I came into somebody in a strange way out in the public who even told me about this. And she confirmed that she was just about 80, I think, years old. And she had extensive knowledge of being there, and I just met her in a strange mystical way, and it was just one of those things where some information was shared and then I didn't see her again, but she's just brought that topic up, and she just said, there's a very amazing energy there. And much often like these kind of more remote island places, it's a great place to really connect in with nature and be away from many things, but it also seems to be places that develop artist colonies and things involving creative expression and good energies. So anyway, the island supposedly is not named after orcas, the whale, but after some Spanish governor. Part of his name sounds like that. I don't know if that's true. But anyway, again, this is one of those things. You're the truth detector. You're able to connect in. Does that feel like it's true? Does it not? And then that becomes your own story. For me, I think it really does tie more into the orca whales, but that's just my feeling. Now we're going to just talk about orcas in general. We talked about the shape-shifting side, and it does tie into the mythology of orca. I did mention the Maori, or the Maori of New Zealand. Consider them guardians, even extended family, those that breathe air in the ocean. But in general, orca mythology with a lot of different groups, they're considered like the Lord of the Sea, shapeshifters, that they move between the human and the spirit realms. And in origin stories for the orcas, some say they originated from a great white wolf that jumped into the sea. So that takes us back to our Arctic, aklut, if I'm saying it right, example of something that morphs between the sea. But instead of being wolf on land and then becoming the orca, this one is, I guess it's the same thing. Yeah, a great white wolf that just jumps into the sea. So it's interesting when you look across the different groups and the different lore, how some start to kind of match up and create a story that seems more fact than fiction. All right. Okay, so I think that's enough from that. And then, we have other examples of shape-shifting involving sea. You have, with the zodiac and constellation Capricorn is the sea goat, right? And that's said to be, if you go to Greek lore, that, was it Pan, god or entity Pan, was trying to escape from the primordial god's offspring Typhon. So it was on land but grew a tail so it could escape the sea creature. And then if you take it to Sumerian roots, supposedly it's relates to the Capricorn of the sea goat, relates to the god of wisdom and waters and magic. and supposedly ties into, if you go along with this storyline, God Enki or Ea, and that was supposed to be the god that was favorable to humans, not the one that was not. And again, I think those, when we talk about those gods, they're just ETs, not just, but ETs with certain intentions. Let's just say that. Nothing, no original creator, loving creator God, as far as my understanding on it. Okay. All right. Anyway, that's an aside on a different transforming, shape-shifting entity. All right. So we're going to look a little more now at whales, killer whales and dolphins. We're going to get into a couple more shape-shifting stories. But here we go. I'm just going to hold this up briefly and invite you to look on your own. That's just showing, different types of beings in the blackfish group. So we've got pilot whales and orcas and all of that. Okay. And then we're going to look at the dolphin side. These happen to be whales and dolphins of Hawaii. And again, it's hard for me to still get my mind around that a dolphin is a whale. But, according to the scientific criteria, they're saying, yes, all dolphins are whales, but not all whales are dolphins. And here's one I'm going to put up specifically because we're going to get into a little bit more soon about pilot whales. And again, so that's a dolphin, just two very different forms. And I have a very specific story coming up about a pilot whale. And then this is just an interesting little tidbit. It's the notion of how do whales sleep. I don't know if you've ever thought about it. You already know about it. You don't. But some whales, like over here, the sperm whales, they sleep vertically. So they're in the ocean and they sleep straight up and down. And I think, they can sleep with their nose up or they can sleep with the nose down. And then these are pilot whales, and apparently they do the same thing. So more like dolphin-like things. And then there are other whales that like to sleep vertically. So I think they call it the log, like the log sleep, because they look like logs. And so that's very interesting. Now you might want to also look into that further. Why do they sleep vertically? Is there something that feels good to them, that they're kind of keying into the earth, in that shape, bridging, between the ground and the sky? I don't know. It also may be something how it feels like, innerly. I think buoyancy-wise, they could do either or. So I think there's something more to that alignment. Maybe they're, heads or whatever, looking for magnetic pull. I don't know. See what you think on that one. So I'm bringing up the pilot whale here, okay, because this is just going to be a little story. I'm going to make it quick because I do have a whole YouTube show dedicated to this. And this is the time that I literally helped save a whale. So when people say save the whales, I did go. It's one of my experiences and my stories of all the stories I have in my life so far collected up. In near Key Largo, there was a place called the Marine Mammal Conservancy. And back in 2011, there was a metaphysical shop I had gone to look at crystals and things. And then somebody posted on the glass door a sign saying, hey, come help save the whales. And I thought, are they serious? Or they just saying that as, some kind of, I don't know, mantra that they're saying for something. But no, it was really a call for people to come help and save the whales. So as you can see here, they had a couple of people. If it was a longer whale, there were 4 people, 2 on each side of the whale. In this case, it's a smaller one. So they have 1 person on each side. And what you did was stand in this little netted off area and held the whale in your arms for 4-hour shifts. So I did go down there. There was a whole pod of them that got beached. And so apparently what happens is their like sonar's messed up and they keep wanting to dive down. So if you don't hold them in the shallows, they keep wanting to dive. That's just, they keep wanting to do that. It's like, what do you call it? Tunnel vision. They literally just can only see going down. So you're there to hold them afloat. And then they can get sunburned. So you occasionally, splash water over them to prevent that. And this is the face of one over here. And this is them trying to transport them from one place to the other. So there was a whole group of them. A lot of them passed. There were only a couple that survived. And actually in the show that I talk about on YouTube, it's called Saving Whales. And I'll repost that or put it in the link it in the description area below. I talked about how my whale didn't make it because at the time I was told it did not. So I don't know if we had a Mandela effect or that person was misinformed. But when I looked up now to research again what happened back in 2011, it said that my whale, because the whale I helped hold for 4 hours, had a number assigned to it. And it had a severely bent tail with scoliosis. And it was about 12 feet long. And they said that whale and the mother made it. So I'm like, oh, okay. They were, treated at a different place. But anyway, so I think my whale made it. But the point on that is, it was a very, if you ever have an opportunity to do that and save a whale or go help marine life. I'm not a water person, but I was called to do that. And there was just such a profound connection. The people up front, I was behind the dorsal fin holding the whale, and the people in the front said they could feel even the heartbeat. And I just got to say, it was truly something special. So if you ever have a moment to do it, do it. But I'm just bringing that up since we're talking about all of the whales and dolphins. And then, this is just some images that I took down in the Keys, Florida Keys, about probably a few years after the example of saving the whale. But, there's just such a connection with talking about that show about the dolphin girls that could take off their skins and then come on land. I think if you've ever looked a dolphin in the face, like, we had great eye contact here. They were looking right in the eyes. There is something that is so connected with us and dolphins. You feel the intelligence. You feel like they know that we are somehow kin. Unlike, I guess, with every animal group you can say that, but especially with the whales and the dolphins, there is something special about that connection. Like even the orcas, I don't know if you've seen on some YouTube videos around, they say that the orcas don't attack humans, at least that we know of, right? In the, confined and harmful, like, training settings that they do, where they just have them do the rote tricks and stuff with the loud, awful music at some of these amusement parks. I'm not talking about those. Anybody would like blow a gasket and flip. We're talking about the ones in nature and in the wild. Supposedly, if there's a diver or somebody coming up, they inherently do like a heart reading. They send it out, and they know that that's somebody that you don't eat. There is a difference. And I think it is because we have a deeper, closer connection with these mammals, than we thought. And it just, there's something to that story about the dolphin girls that I keep going back to all of this. So I don't have all the answers, but I'm just dropping it out there to see what kind of story you have or feeling you have about it all intuitively. Okay, and now I'm going to come, I think this will be close to the close of the show. If I have that time, I'll put up a few cards, mention a couple other things, but I want to bring up a very specific story. So I set up that I was, helping to save the whales in that specific time down in the Keys, a magical experience, even though I don't enjoy water that much, salt, brackish kind of water. But another experience happened involving the ocean and a dog, golden retriever, for any dog lovers out there. It's not a wolf, but, close. So here's a picture of a boat, going out into Biscayne Bay. That's downtown Miami in the distance. And a couple of decades back, I was with some friends, and they had a very beloved golden retriever who loved the water. Of course, that was one that did have a great connection to the water. I guess some retrievers aren't so water friendly and others love it. Anyway, it was like a child, to these friends. And so the dog had passed, and they had the ashes, and they had held on to the ashes for years, and finally decided it was time to somehow honor the dog, and it was time to let those go. So another friend had a boat, and I was invited to come along, and just, we thought we'd honor this beautiful, loving, loyal, loving dog, and they wanted just to release the ashes out. So we went, and we got to a particular part, and the owner said, okay, I think this is right. This is the place. We're out at sea. And so the owner releases the ashes, and we had, trekked all around the bay and had been a little bit in the ocean and whatever. Didn't see any dolphins the entire time. And it really wasn't the season where you see them a lot. And so we didn't really expect to see them, but we didn't see any. So anyway, the owner drops the ashes in. The moment the last ash trailed into the water, this enormous dolphin sprang vertically out, like just a foot away from where the last bubble trail was of the ashes. And everyone felt it. And I'm getting the chills because I'm looking, and my clock says 11:11 p.m. And I don't look for the 11:11s. They just happen. And I shout it out because I know a lot of people out there, you like the numbers, you know what it means. And if you don't, look up Joanne Sacred Scribes Australian blog, do an internet search, and then type in any number you want. It's called Sacred Scribes Angel Numbers. So you type in 11:11, you'll see what that means. But right when that last trail of the ashes went in, where's my black? Okay, so that dolphin came up and as long as it could was vertical and sprung over at just that one time, then we didn't see it again. So on this theme of transformation and shape shifting, all of us had the chills run down through the spine, like we knew that was the dog shape shifted and taking on a new life as that dolphin, no question. I mean, we felt it strong. So anyway, that was just to close off the show on the shape-shifting theme. Now, for any of those of you who love a good romance novel, apparently there's one dedicated all to shape-shifting and shifter romances. And I didn't even know that was a whole genre, but it is. So I'll put a link below if you're interested in that kind of thing, because this one girl really writes really, fun novels that way, and talks about different kinds of shifters, whether it's wolves, werewolves, I think, what does she have? Dragons, panthers. It's just kind of funny. I think it came on my feed because I've got Panther in my handle, but in my YouTube show. Anyway, just for fun there. So let me show, as I close this up, I'm going to show some crystals. For anybody who's into the more spiritual side of things, I'm going to show some crystals and some cards. So that's not for you. Have a beautiful day or evening. We'll see you next time. And if you do like it, I'll just show what I've got here. So I've held this one up before. This is an amazing, a specific specimen I found of Orca Agate. And instead of going into the properties and healing properties of it, you can see why it's called Orca. I mean, it looks like an orca coming up out of the water, doesn't it? It's beautiful. So if you can get your hands on one, they have a very great vibe. I'm not going to give by the book version of what they are, the properties of them, but I invite you to go look up the book version of what it will tell you. Oh, they're good for this or this or this. For me, I just want to do an intuitive read on 3 specific specimens I have. And to me, they each have their own life of their own. So even if the book says something, I think you got to look at hold each crystal or be in the presence of it and really connect in. What does it say to you that it is? So in this case, I just wanted to bring up, it's just, instead of saying what it does or doesn't do, for me, this is just very much about rise up energy, rise up in balance, take in that fresh air, breathe in the air. It's a water dweller, but it also can breathe air. Isn't that miraculous? And it's just a message, to rise up and just really breathe in that air. And whales, whether it's a dolphin or a whale, has that body mass, and just really breathe in. Imagine you are pulling in from your stomach. Some people want to pull in all the way from their toes. For me, no, it works best just the bottom of the stomach area. Really breathe in and exhale, because we, without realizing it, tend to just shallow breathe so much. At least I do, without realizing it. And there's a big difference between just shallow breathing here versus drawing it all in. So even if you just remember once a day to go deep and, pull it up like a whale and then just expel it out, it does make a difference in your day and in your body, I believe, anyway. So anyway, see, this may be something you're interested in finding, getting one for yourself. There are different platforms like Etsy, or you might have a mineralogy group, a lapidary group, or a mineralogy geology group in your town. If not, maybe start one where they get together, and then they also have like crystal shows, maybe once or twice a year, where a bunch of people come together with their different specimens. You have people who love to rock hound and just, take off and go and try to find minerals out there in the outdoors, and rocks and, all kinds of things. So that's just something maybe you want to explore. So that's, example number 1. Also with the Orca Agate, some are very like true black, like you see, because my background's black there. It's very dark. Others are lighter. So I'll give you an example of this one. So this is this is just kind of called freeform shape, freeform. This one is like a flame, because if you look at it vertically, it has a little bit of like grooves to it that swirl around to make it like a flame. But you can see this one is not as black and white. It's more of like a gray. That's like kind of the chalcedony aspect of it. And what I want to say is this one, though, when I held it horizontal, to me, this reminds me of that aklut, that shape-shifting sea wolf thing, because to me, this is like, the snout, and that's like the eye. So this kind of reminded me of the head, again, the nose over here, and that's kind of the eye of like the sea wolf, idea, the shapeshifter. So for me, this is just kind of embodying some of that aklut, that Arctic energy. And then this one, I just want to say, this is a palm stone. So it's another version or shape that a lot of crystals come in all kinds of shapes and forms. And this one to me is reminding me very much of the Orca, obviously, but also because it's got that true black but also it's reminding me of the yin and yang symbol, so the balance, right? And that nothing ever is truly black or white. There's always nuances and facets and whatever. But this just has a very calming effect, especially a palm stone, because you hold it in the palm of your hand. It's like, for some people in some cultures, there's a worry stone. And this, it's just nice to hold on to. It's also good for grounding. This feels really good for grounding. So anyway, that's enough on those Orca agates. But that's one of my favorite, I think one of my favorite crystals of all time. And then I'm just going to hold up some visuals. I'm not going to really go in and read these in depth as a card reading, but I'm going to just kind of mention some numbers and phrases and just show some cards from different decks you might not be familiar with. And they're going to incorporate the wolf, spirit, whale, and dolphin from various decks. So I'll just read this straight up. So this is going to be number 67, wolf spirit, turn knowledge into wisdom. And number 67 in numerology is also a 13 or a 4. Okay, so any of those numbers might mean something to you. And I'll put the names of the decks and the authors and all of that and the illustrators in the description area below. That's a beautiful wolf card, wolf spirit. Then we have whale spirit, trust the great mystery. This is one of my favorite messages. It's short and sweet, but really hits home. It's number 65 or an 11 or a 2 in numerology. And that's a beautiful card. So trust the great mystery. That really is what we're all doing here right now. But what's interesting is like this whale, as we dive deep, we're starting to see some mysteries, come to light. And as the veil is thinning, the mysteries aren't so mysterious anymore. And it's a fun time to be here to start to discover all of these worlds, right? Now here's the number 20 or 2, dolphin spirit. This and that are true. This is a beautiful card too. This and that are true. And what that reminds me of is it's just like I'm saying, I'm weaving a story here. I'm pulling all these different threads together. I'm dropping, maybe names, numbers, codes, concepts, just as little threads that you might want to pick up and weave into your own tapestry and they'll have a totally different meaning to you. But no matter how we perceive and weave these things, this becomes our story and it's, true for each of us. So this and that are true. Anything that we create is true for us, right? All right, so that's that. Now let me show you the animal spirits. Let's see, from Kim Krantz, the Animal Spirit Guidebook. So here's whale. See if you get any feelings off of that. Then we have wolf. A little bit of fire energy I feel in the back of that. And dolphin. Now I have hits on what to say about each of those, but I'm feeling like those are for you to feel it if you felt anything off of it. And you can feel free to pause this show later on the replay and freeze frame and screenshot it if you need to. Okay, this is from another deck called Spirit Animal Wisdom. And I'm going to show you wolf. And actually, I will read these. I got to turn on my flashlight. It's dimmer over here on my setup than it looks. So we have wolf, heart medicine. Let go of that which does not serve your highest good. Oh, absolutely. Let go of what does not serve your absolute highest good. Because look at this, wolf wants to run free and wouldn't be able to run free if it had a bunch of bags strapped to its back, right? So just drop that, and go and run like the wolf, run with the wolves. Then we have whale, tenderness. Show compassion and forgive what needs to be forgiven. And I like this because it kind of looks like the pilot whales a little bit because they have the more bulbous head. And they look actually like they're having a fun time. All right, then we have dolphin, Atlantis. Healing wisdom is surfacing. Stop and listen. Okay, so we have a whole pod of dolphins swirling around what looks like ancient ruins. And it's just saying to stop and listen, glean that wisdom. Instead of just kind of following your nose one behind the other like ducks in a row, be that dolphin that off-roads it a minute and really takes a good look around at the surroundings instead of just going and doing how things are usually done. Think outside if there is no, think outside of the box, there is no box. Just, zoom out and look at the overall situation with a much bigger picture in mind than just like, oh, I go do this, and this, right? All right, let's see what else we got. I think we have 2 more decks. I'll just hold up. This one is just one. It's Wolf Spirit. And the message their concept is family. We have number, it looks like 51. Yeah, 51. It's also number 6. And we've got the snow, which is looking like stars. And I think of the constellation, there's a Canis Major and a Canis Minor for like big and little dog, but I don't know, there might be something there for somebody to take a look into that. Okay, now there's one more, and then we'll wrap things up. This card says the wolf and the rosehip, guardianship, and that is number 25 or a 7. And that's a beautiful card. That's coming from the Woodland Warden's deck, pairing with the rosehip. And what I think about with this card too is getting into those herbals, like those nice natural herbal teas. There's a lot of nice ones made with rosehip, especially like there's a nice hibiscus and rosehip combination. And rosehips, if you combine it with other herbs, I'm trying to think what the other ones are, not valerian. There's a few different things that you combine the rosehip with, and you can make a great kind of syrup, distill it into a syrup, and it's great for like a cough medicine and things like that. So there's so many things you can do with beautiful natural plants and herbs and herbal teas. Okay, so I think, just thinking a moment, if anything else wants to come through, I am going to wrap this one up. So I think the timing is about right. And I apologize if anybody tried to get in a chat and it didn't. I saw nothing. And if nobody came in, that's fine too. But for now, I just want to say, wherever you are, first of all, I hope you're staying nice and toasty with this weather, with the ice coming through. And I don't know, I think there's something about that Aklut character, that Inuit wolf and whale thing, since we're talking about the Arctic, and that's very much on the news scene right now, what's going on in the Arctic. There might be something more to look into there. I'm going to look more into that topic now that I know about it. All right, well, I wish you all, as always, tremendous peace and love wherever you are right now, whatever you're going through, growing through. If everything's beautiful in your world, thank goodness. We need beautiful examples. Keep going out on that high and bring good, bright, beautiful things into the world. If you're feeling in the dumps, don't worry about it. God brings that, loving God, or however you want to look at it, loving light, loving universe, shines through you, even if you're in like your lowest low, because wherever we are, God is, and that energy is brought through us, whether we know it or not. And you may start to find with this veil thinning that you just hop into a store, feel like crap. I've talked about this in other shows. It's happened to me. You could have just been crying before you showed up in that store, but all of a sudden people like light up with you around and look at you with childlike wonder, because that spark is coming through and shining out to people, whether you are consciously guiding that ship or not. Okay. So I think that's something good to end on. So tremendous peace and love to all of you. Till next time. Bye.